Everyone says on Instagram, show your face, show your face, show your face. And everybody's intimidated to do that. So this is what I tell everyone who asks me, you do this so easily. And I'm like, trust me, the first time I did 2,000 takes, to just get something out there. But then I thought, okay, who is my best friend? I'm talking to her, and that's all I'm talking to. And I'm just going around showing her what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about who is looking at my stories.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Designing Tomorrow. I am so excited for today's guest. We have Jen Davidson, who is a self-taught interior designer who had a previous 20-year career as a flight attendant, and she has some amazing stories about how she's now gone to run Interiors by Jen Davidson, a successful design firm based out of Illinois. She is going to dig into her marketing tactics, why she invested in coaching so early, and how she really values client communication and some of the things that she does to make sure that that stays forefront or front of the project the entire time for her clients. So I'm really excited for you to hear it. Let's go ahead and dig in. Hi, Jen. I'm so excited to have you today. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. I have kind of a million questions. I doubt that we'll get through all of them, but I'm so excited because I know you have this unique career path, starting as a flight attendant, big surprise, and now running a thriving design firm. So I think switching careers, will resonate with a lot of the people listening to this. So I just want to hear about your journey from that to Interiors by Jen Davidson.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny. As I found recently an old picture of me, I used to always love to style my room and switch things up. So I never, though, thought that I would ever become an interior designer. Growing up, we all have our own stories, and growing up was a little tough on my end, but it was just something that I persevered. But I struggled in school. Socially, I was great, but school was just a struggle for me. So I never really believed in myself that I could go further than getting through those high school years. And then it's like, okay, what do I do? And everyone around me had these visions of what they were going to do. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. So my parents encouraged me to go to junior college to figure it out. And so I did that. And it still was a little bit of a struggle for me. And I believed this lie that I just couldn't really be anything. It was just a lie that I believed for a very long time in my life. And I was going to junior college and I was working a couple jobs. And one of the jobs I was working was at a golf course. And I met this girl and we became instant friends, and she was a flight attendant. And so just with talking with her, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And she's like, you have a great personality. You should be a flight attendant. I said, that's awesome. But there's one big problem. I am terrified to fly, like huge phobia of flying.
Oh, no.
And she was like, don't worry about it. It's so much fun. And I don't know what it was, but something in me was like, yep, let's do this. What better way to overcome your fear of flying than just jumping right in? So that's exactly what I did. I didn't get hired my first time, but they said I was a little too young and I needed a little bit more life experience. But then I was about 22 years old when I finally got hired on as a flight attendant. And I was living in Texas and I ended up in Chicago by being based there. And then I just moved to Chicago. And I flew for 20 years.
Wow.
It was 20 years of flying all over the United States, meeting amazing people, really gaining a confidence in me that I didn't really have during my younger years. I think also that's just life. But deep inside, there was something more in me. And I didn't know what it was at the time. But I knew being a flight attendant wasn't it. It was just it met me where I was at that age. Right. So I, got married, had kids, and really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had some life things that happened. I was married. I ended up getting a divorce. I ended up being a single mom. I had no family in Chicago because I'd married a Chicago man, living in the city. And I was like, I don't want to live in the city. So I moved to the suburbs all by myself, not knowing a soul. And I bought this small little cottage home for me and my son. Fast forward, I meet my dream man and we end up getting married, and we were in this home and we were expanding our family because I had mine from my marriage. He had two from his, and we wanted kids together. So anyway, we decided, I loved where I lived because I grew up in this house of mine. And so we decided to stay where we were, but it wasn't big enough for our family. So we decided to remodel. And I have always loved, like I said, when I was little, I like to always move my furniture around and style my bookshelves and all that. And I was like, I think I could do this. When I was married before, we had remodeled a kitchen. I did it all on my own. I worked with the GC and just asked him a lot of questions and learned a lot. So I thought, I think I can take on this task. I think I can do this. So we hired an architect and worked with him. And I was here every day during the renovation. I asked a lot of questions, and I started picking out the tile, the stains of the floor, the trim work, the stone, the cabinets, everything. Worked with the cabinet makers, and we created a home that to this day, we've lived here now with the remodel about 8 years. I love every single thing of it. And that really was like, oh, that was fun. But I had friends saying, you should do this. You should do this. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not trained. They're like, you've got this. You did such a great job. I was like, nope, can't do it. I don't have a background and just, it's not for me. Well, I had a neighbor and good friend that was an interior designer, and she saw what I did. And she's like, Jen, you can do this so much. In fact, one of my girls on my team, she's going off on maternity leave. And I would love for you to step in and just help me out while she's on maternity leave. So I worked with her for a little bit. Fast forward with life, her girl came back that was working for her, and I had a newborn baby at the time. So the timing just wasn't right. So now we're at 2020 COVID, and this interior design friend who I had spoke with or helped out with, she said, hey, I am overloaded. As all designers I've heard was at 2020, they just got overloaded. And she was like, I really need help. Could you help me on this project? It's a small project. It's just a little guest bedroom that one of my great clients, they need help in creating a guest bedroom. And I was like, I would love to. So I went and I did that room, and it turned out so good. And I loved the client experience. I loved the design part. I loved everything of it. And I don't know what it was. It was probably a little bit of maturity, 2020, a lot of things. But I started thinking about me taking that huge step of faith of overcoming my fears of flying and becoming a flight attendant and seeing what all that brought me, all the joys, the highs, the ups, the downs, everything. And I thought to myself, if I did that, why could I not start my own interior design firm? So of course I went to this designer. I said, hey, I kind of want to do this on my own. What do you think? And she's like, heck yeah, girl, there's enough for all of us. Go for it. She really encouraged me. And so I did. And it just started off with a small little room here. And then another client would come and say, oh, I have this. And I would post it on Instagram, and then people would see. And then that landed me pretty quickly a kitchen, a full kitchen, total renovation, which I had never done. But I was like, I can do this because I did my own and it turned out beautiful. So let's just jump in. So I really just jumped in. And from that kitchen, I got it professionally photographed, and then that led to another job. And then it just kind of blew up from there. Yeah. So that's how, I know that was a really long story.
It's amazing. There's so many things in that I want to call out. First of all, flight attendants are one of the most important people. We travel a lot, and my daughter is almost 4. And I cannot tell you the difference that a great flight attendant makes when you have a kid who's traveling and they give them snacks early and make them and just smile and they're not grumpy. So I can imagine your personality is huge. I can see it all over your Instagram. I'm like, Jen would be the most amazing flight attendant. So thankful you did that for the people out there for 20 years. I think you clearly have this incredible resilience and determination. I think I hear a lot of doubt that you mentioned at the beginning, but ultimately, there's no doubt. I mean, I think you've done an incredible job. I think it's such a journey that you've been on. It's a really cool story. I would say, I think for anyone listening and even myself and anyone who's kind of starting a second career or really doing anything outside of what feels normal or comfortable, I think that comes with a bit of imposter syndrome. And I know that's like a big word thrown around, but I think, have you experienced that, and sort of what if you have, I guess, what have you done to overcome it?
Absolutely. I think we all deal with it. And it is so comforting to know that others have dealt with this as well. It kind of brings down that wall, and allows us to be vulnerable and to realize that we're not alone in this, And I think once you know that you're not alone, then that helps you continue moving forward and helping you to propel. It gives you the resilience that you need to, okay, let's continue to do this. And then it builds confidence in you that you do know what you're doing. I think I've had lots of discussions of, what designers are learning in school right now, which it's important. It's all about the technical aspect of it. But it's nothing to do with the day-to-day of what we deal with. It's not dealing with the client experience. It's not dealing with the different fires that we're putting out every day. It's not thinking of different solutions of how to handle, a situation. There's highs and lows, and that's something I talk about a lot with my clients, is setting those expectations. And just with having that communication has helped me kind of like setting the tone of the project and letting clients know that there's a lot that goes into a project. It's just not all the pretty. That has helped me get over a little bit of that imposter syndrome, because you see all these pretty pictures on Instagram, Pinterest, and all that. And you think, oh my gosh, that is absolutely beautiful. But there's so much that goes on behind it. And then when you know that someone who's behind that photograph is just as real as me and is dealing with the same things I am, for me, it helps me gain a little bit of that confidence and kind of getting over that imposter syndrome, because I think we're all just human and doing the best we can.
I think that's amazing. I think it's important to remember that imposter syndrome in general comes from, at least for me, the sort of expectation that others have about you. And so I think in that vein, it's like, if we just remember we're all human. We've all been there before. Maybe it wasn't the moment they did that room, but maybe it was the one before that and they overcame something. Like we're all just human. So I absolutely love that. Let's back up a little bit. So you officially started in 2020. It sounds like that's kind of when you made the leap.
Yes, probably.
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly.
And around there. Okay. So we're in 2024, almost 2025, right? I'm not crazy. So talk to us about, you first started, when did you bring on your first hire? Maybe what your team structure looks like now. Yeah. And how you thought about doing that as someone who maybe isn't technically trained. Maybe you had different hiring preferences.
That is such a great question. I will be the first to admit that I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just got in that position, or I just started and I was like, okay, we're going to figure this out. So I hired someone pretty early on, and she really helped me on the back end of everything. It was still very early on. I was doing just really smaller projects at that point. But she helped with client communication. She helped me set up with vendors, just really everything on the back end. And quickly then we ended up getting that kitchen I spoke about. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I can learn to draw, but this is going to take me forever. Like, I know what I want, but I don't know how to draw it. So I ended up outsourcing a wonderful woman who specialized in kitchen and baths. And so she helped me, and that was very intimidating at first. But then once walking with her and talking with her, and when I say walking with her, like walking her through the project, she really taught me a lot. And I learned a lot from that one experience. And so after working with her, I was like, okay, I know my next hire is going to be someone who has, a formal background. So then they can help me propel, because I have all the vision, I have the ideas, but I just needed to come to life. And so I was probably in business a year and a half, and I hired Lexi, who works with me now, as my junior designer. And so she came in, and we've really grown up together. Through each project, we're learning more and more to now where we got it down. Her and I work really well together, and we've got a really sweet system. So I now have 4 girls total on my team, including me. So I have Lexi, who's the junior designer. I have a girl who is our design assistant, and she is currently working on learning how to draw as well. So she's going to be a huge asset to our team. And then we have a procurement coordinator and a client experience coordinator.
Today's episode is brought to you by Materio. Materio is an all-in-one project management system made for interior designers and design build firms to operationalize your projects. And whether you heard it in this episode or somewhere else, Materio is going to be the place to streamline communication, manage your selections, and make sure that you can hand off documents and deliverables all to your contractors and your trades. To learn more about Materio, you can visit www.materio.co or check us out on Instagram at materio.co. I think in the vein of client experience, you mentioned, you had someone to help you at the beginning with communications, and I can definitely tell that you focus on that. I think maybe it comes off that way on your website and and the way that you kind of communicate. I think you don't have a marketing background, but you're great at communicating. I'm like, what is that? So with each project, and I think, again, going back to kind of overcoming doubts, each project you're going to learn something new about how a certain client may engage with you or may feel about something. What advice would you give to designers who maybe it's not a difficult client, but are just kind of learning or struggling with client communications?
Right. So I really put everything into perspective, and I try to look at it from the other's point of view. So I use an analogy a lot with my clients. And of course, I go back to being a flight attendant. And there are people who hate to fly, like me. I hated to fly. I hated the turbulence. I didn't like the unknown. All of that. Some people thrive on that. I did not. So I try to let my clients know. And what I say about that, kind of going backwards for a second, is when you're flying and you go through turbulence, the best thing that can calm anyone down, of all my experience, is when either a flight attendant looks at you, makes an announcement, or if a pilot comes on and says, hey guys, we're going through some turbulence. It's going to be bumpy, but it's going to smooth out in about 5 minutes. So then you have an expectation. Okay, this is going to suck for the next 5 minutes. We're going to get through this and it's going to be fine. So that's kind of like what I talk to my clients about. I use that analogy because most of them know I was a flight attendant, and they'll usually relate like, oh yeah, I hate winter, but I hate to fly. And I'm like, okay, there are going to be times during this project that you're going to hate it. That we're going to have delays. We're going to have, all kinds of things. There's so many moving parts that our clients just don't know. They don't know all the behind the scenes, all the details. There's thousands of details that we are trying to manage. And so I'm always wanting to communicate with them and give them the expectation, because then I feel like it lets them put their guard down and it lets them kind of open up to the experience instead of asking questions. Well, why isn't this getting done? And why is this happening? And all of those things, because all it's going to do is it's going to work them up. They're going to be stressed, and then we're going to be stressed. And then we'll probably end up hating each other. And I don't want that ever, So I always say, there's going to be a time where you're going to say, I hate you, Jen. I said, but I promise you at the end, you're going to give me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, and everything's going to be fine, because we're really creating a beautiful home, a home that you always imagined.
Yeah.
But it's a process, and it's not a fun one at times. I mean, it can be. It's the highs and the lows.
I think that's actually like one of the most genius metaphors to a project is turbulence. I've somewhat overcome my fear of flying. I fly quite a bit, but when it's like wobbly, or one time recently it just dropped and I was like, your stomach hits the bottom. You're right. You're like, okay. Or if they come on and make an announcement, but you can't quite understand it, you're like, okay, we're dying. Like, I don't know what's going on. So,
right.
I think that that comes down to the clear communication. And I can imagine that your clients absolutely appreciate and identify with that. And I think it's genius. In the note of communication and also just process and systems, I mean, you're 4, almost 5 years-ish into this. You obviously use Materio. That's how we know each other. Yeah. And you use a few other systems like Asana and Canva and Google Drive and SketchUp. But I think the biggest thing is like, even as a younger firm, you're really focused on process. And I love that you have that communication aspect built in. I'm curious, for all of those out there listening, just kind of what are the specifics of some of the tools that you use and maybe something that other designers might benefit from hearing?
Well, I think one thing, it was said to me recently, we were using another program we use for our communication is Slack. Slack is kind of like an instant messaging. So my design team, we're in office. We have a studio that we're there every day. And then the 2 other girls, the admin type girls, they work from home. They're remote. So Slack is a key communication. And then Asana is kind of like our making sure our projects, we're staying on timeline and just making sure everything is getting done. That's a part of our process. And the way we look at it is Slack is reactive when we need to communicate something right now, but Asana is proactive. Keep making sure that we are ahead of the game so a ball doesn't get dropped. I'm always like, I never want to drop a ball. I want to be more proactive. I want my team to be proactive. I want us to think about the next step, which is hard to do, but it just helps us prepare better. Obviously, we use SketchUp for all of our drawings to communicate to, either our cabinet makers or the architect or GC or vision. We use Materio, which I love. And that has been a game changer for us, especially QR codes and just keeping that communication with all of our subcontractors and our GC. Today, in fact, I was on site and changed my mind about a grout color, and right then and there, I could change it instantly, and it was done. And they were like, that's huge. We don't have to wait for you to go back to your office and reprint something up and bring it all the way back here and put it in a binder that we're just going to lose. I'm like, yes, sir. So that was amazing. So all of those things, again, come back to the key thing that is so important to me is communication, because that is what makes everything continue to move forward, even when something goes wrong, because inevitably something always goes wrong. I have yet to be on a project that there has not been some sort of a hiccup. That is just the reality of this business. So communication, trying to stay as organized and really having a process allows for all of those things to be handled without giving me, my clients, or anyone else like many heart attacks or, anxiety, or just trying to make this as easy and as fun as possible.
I think communication is a big part. You also mentioned talking with, or handing information to subcontractors and GCs. I think one question that probably a lot of people would have if they could ask you right now is, you have gone from, starting this on your own without any technical training or background in interior design. What type of projects are you able to take on now? What's kind of your favorite type of project, or the ones that you really want to go after?
I really enjoy new builds. Right after that kitchen, I got a new build right away and jumped right into it. And luckily I had a wonderful builder that was amazing and a wonderful architect to work with. And it's really where my creative sweet spot kind of goes. And then obviously, every designer wants to end up with the furnishing after that. So that's really, I really love the construction part of it. And then once you have it all constructed, put all the pretties in it, the final details to make it really shine. So that's kind of my sweet spot. We've taken on really small commercial projects. I would say that's probably not my sweet spot. It might be a little intimidating to me, but I took on 2 and I said, why not? But they're really, small. They're like lobbies or something, one was at a spa, their lobby. So I dove into it and it was fun and it turned out beautiful. But anything bigger than that, I think I might, just to be honest, a little intimidated. But I thought, again, got to try it to see if you like it. It's kind of like what I tell my kids, just try it. And if you don't like it, great. But I want you to at least try it,
You're not one to be intimidated, Jen. Come on. You've proven otherwise. So you might as well just go for it.
I just feel like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And that's a hard thing to say. It's so cliche, but I've really learned by confronting my fears, you're able to build resilience, and then that can propel you into new opportunities. And so I think that that's just really important. That's kind of the way I look at things. So,
yeah, I think it's easy to say, what's the worst that could happen? But I did this recently because we're thinking about buying an apartment, and you're like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? And you really go through, I'm like, worst case, we end up without a home and we live with our parents and we get to have dinner with our parents every night, or whatever. Right. Like you just say, you're like, that's the worst case.
Yeah.
How bad could it be? Let's go for it, so, right. But if you actually think about the scenarios, it's like, well, that is a little intimidating and might wake up with fear, but,
I mean, I'm human. I still walk through those fears. I still walk through those, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I've even had failures. I've had failures. It hasn't all been, sunshine and rainbows. There have been failures, but those failures led to new processes and new procedures and, new ways we're going to communicate with our clients and things like that. So I used to be afraid of the failures because what would it, how is someone going to look at me? She failed, And then I kind of stopped myself because you can quickly start believing those lies. And if you do, it's just going to defeat you. So it's like, how can we turn that mindset around? And so then I started looking at all those failures and, okay, what did I learn from it? How did I change?
What would you say has been the most impactful failure for you? Like the biggest failure leading to the most realization or wisdom?
Really, communication. I think that's why I'm so big on it, is because I believe I failed, a client in not communicating well early on. And that was before I realized what they were going through. I was just looking at the black and white of the job, but I wasn't looking at the gray area and looking at them and what their feelings were of kind of, again, let's take it back to the airplane of, when you're going through that turbulence and you think that you're going down and that's it, it's scary, And so when I kind of stood back and looked at it from their perspective or looked at it, a client like, okay, they're having all these strangers in and out of their house every single day. They're having contractors talk to them, designers. It's just a lot, And so I try to be really empathetic with my clients and just hold their hand and talk them through it, And every time I do that now, it just, again, it puts that armor down, it puts that shield down and gives them kind of that, it's going to be okay. Because in their mind, it's not going to be okay,
Yeah.
They don't see an end in sight like we do.
Yeah. I feel like you have this very positive, calming energy. I don't know if you bring that to your projects or not, or if it's just what you've got for me today, but I feel like you have that. And I'm wondering, like, for the 3 other women that are working with you, and just any employees you might bring on, are there any sort of like company values or things that you sort of try to, embed in the team? Because I feel like you have that. I didn't know if you make a conscious effort to maybe bring that to your team and teach them to communicate that way.
We do. On Mondays, we always have our team meeting. And so I try to look at, what's going on, where we are with all of our clients, and then talk about, you hear this, talk about the wins of the week and what was a struggle, which before I was like, okay, that's so cheesy, but it's actually so important because then we can talk it through. And I just had a conversation with one of the girls on the team and she was just struggling. And I said, she's like, you know what? It's hard and I'm being challenged, but you've really helped me look at, okay, this is making us better because now I know next time I need to make sure I call, this out or that out. And I was like, yes, okay, good. Yes, like that's right. Okay. I think the importance of why is huge. And so anytime we talk about anything, it's always about the why behind it. Because to me, then that makes sense. You understand why this is happening, because sometimes you might overlook it and think, oh, well, that's dumb. Well, let's think about the why we're doing this, and why it's actually not dumb. It's helping us, and not hurting us. Yeah, it might take, an extra step, or, it's not going to be as quick and fast, but we rather do it right than, hurry something along and have lots of mistakes.
I think that's one of the areas that a lot of business owners struggle with is just even if you're like, I love design, I want to be a designer, and then all of a sudden you have team members and you have to manage them and you have to encourage them and build a culture. And I think that is really, really hard to do successfully. So I love that you're focused on that.
It is. And it's been a learning process because at first I wanted to be everyone's friend, and I've learned quickly that yes, you can be a friend, but I also have to be a leader. And that's new to me. But I love the design part, but I actually really love even more so the business part. I love everything about building a business and really creating a culture within our team and then outside of work, building those relationships with our contractors, our, vendors, our subcontractors, everybody we work with, I go in and look at them and hear them. I was actually talking to one of our tile installers and she said, you're like the first designer that says yes. Do you say yes to everything? I said, no. I said no to a lot of things. I said, but I trust your judgment and I'm listening to your judgment, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm okay changing this design a little bit because this actually works better and it's going to make the place even better. So I'm extremely open to collaborating. It's not just my way. I have a vision, but if it can be done better or a little bit different, that's going to make it even better. I'm all for that.
I love that. I feel like that's just having the learning mindset and taking your ego out of it and just being willing to learn. It's easy, I think, to come into design and feel like, you know what you want and you want it done. But I think the best designers are collaborative. I know you also emphasize the importance of sort of building the meaningful relationships, obviously with your clients, but you also mentioned, architects, vendors, contractors, the tile installer, your subcontractor. So how do these connections and sort of building those really impact the success of your design projects?
I think because it allows, I go in with my guard down and just come in as a team player. And so when that happens, it allows them to let their guard down. I think everybody, especially when you work with someone new, everybody has a guard up because you don't have an expectation of how something's going to be run, or you might have a past experience with another designer and it didn't work that well, So I come in with anything new. I do this in friendships, in real life. I come in and it's like, all right, we're working together. Let's get to know each other. Tell me about you. Tell me about your kids. Like, I want to know about them. I want to find some sort of connection first. And then once we have that connection, then we can work through things, and talk about things. And it just opens everything up. So I'm always like, I'm attainable. You can reach me. I'm not too big for my britches. Let's call me up. Let's talk about whatever, you have going on. If there's an issue, anything.
I love that. How do you balance, not that this means having an open door at literally all hours, but do you ever struggle with wanting to have that really open client communication or even collaborators, but also being a mom, having a family? Like, how do you
I set those boundaries. They're healthy boundaries. And I set them early on. It's an expectation. It's at one of our first meetings with my clients that, hey, I am here for you through these hours. But then after that, the most precious thing to me is my family. I don't want my dreams of building a business to come in the way of my children. So I work it out. Luckily, I have a wonderful tribe behind me. My husband happens to be a pilot, so he's gone.
Oh, wow.
So I'm single mom, like during the weeks usually. And I have two boys, they do two different sports, and one's in high school and one's in elementary school. So they're all over the place. So when I come home 5 o'clock usually, because I have to start getting kids to where they need to go. And I make sure I pick up my kids too. That's an important thing to me, is to make sure I pick them up, especially my teenager, because just those little car rides, sometimes they open up to you, and that's precious, Mom. So take those opportunities. But I really want to be there for them. And I want my kids to know my mom was always there. And the same thing on the weekends. If my clients reach out to me, they already know the expectation that I may or may not get back to them. And sometimes they break that boundary, but I stick strong to it. And then first thing Monday, I get back to them then. And then once they see that that's how I work, then they get it, like, okay. Because nothing, unless their house is burning down, everything can be fixed or figured out. There's nothing we can't solve. So
it's like toddlers and kids in general. You have to hold firm on those rules or they'll just break them, and they know that you'll break them, and then they'll push you.
Trust me, I had an experience where I let go of my process to meet a client's needs. I met every need of her, and it ended up being disastrous. And that's a failure that I learned from as well, is you have to set those boundaries, that this is a business as well, and there are times that the doors are open, there are times that the doors are closed, and that's just the way it is. So, and that's something that I had to work through, and it took me a long time to work through that. So that is everything that I've spoken about today. It did not just happen. Everything, got me to where I am today, and still things are going to happen, and it'll get me to where I am tomorrow,
Absolutely. Everything. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I love everything that you're saying today. So this is so much fun. Okay. I know you mentioned a few minutes ago that you love the business side of things. You also mentioned that you recently went to the Design Biz Retreat, and that one of your, goals was to start doing podcasts. So I'm glad I could help you with that. But I want to know, kind of, at what point in your career as an interior designer did you start investing in business events? Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's retreats like this, like
right away.
Right. And what drove you to do that though? Like, cause I feel like some people are like, I don't have the money, I want to hold back. What made you want to do it?
Couple things. Couple of my mindsets and my thoughts were, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I've got to do something, because it's going to be really hard to figure this out on my own. So right away, I think the first one that I took, like literally right off the bat, was Sandra Funk. She has The Standard, and it's really, she's all about showing you the process, like she literally gave you the business side of it, and it was very tangible. And so I used her kind of format for the longest time, but then I started alternating it to meet my needs, and how I was working, because it's not a one size fit all. All of these, I've gone to them all. I mean, I did Sandra Funk. I've gone to Design Camp. I've gone to the Haven List, and now I've gone to Rick Campo's Design Biz Survival Retreat. And from each of those, I take I learn at each of them. It's not a one-all-fits-all and you get it and everything changes. It's over time. I've taken little bits of it to form my company and my firm that works for me and my clients. By me doing that, my return of investment was made back right away. It is a cost. It is an investment. But I believe in investing in yourself. And I encourage that there's several different designers throughout the community that I speak with. And they always were like, oh, I don't know. It's a lot of money. I'm like, it is, but you're going to make it back, and you're going to learn so much, and it's going to give you a confidence boost. And sometimes we need to do this because we get stuck in the mundane, and we need to get recharged and motivated again. And it also helps to hear others are just like you. And then you also build friendships, really great bonds with the community of wonderful designers that we have. We have an amazing community out there. I mean, I've become such great friends with, people through Instagram, with us just following and respecting each other. And if you see something, just reaching out. I mean, you're always are able to reach out to me. I'm an open book. I'll tell you whatever you want to know, And there's others out there just like me. So it's great.
I love that. I feel like sometimes with design and social media, it can be a little bit hairy about, oh, I don't want to share someone's work, with credit, all that I understand. But I do think there's also maybe an element of being shy about reaching out. So I love that. If anybody's listening and wants to chat with Jen, just DM her. She's apparently available. But and only within hours.
Yeah, right. Within business hours.
Only business hours. But I love that. I think it's so important to foster community. It's something that we're working on at Materio, where we feel like, okay, I get to talk to people. Our team gets to talk to all of our customers. Like, we know that you all, some of you, are connected, and that's how you hear about us. And then others are looking for that. So I'm excited to be bringing that hopefully to Materio people soon. I think that you have an amazing presence online. I think that your website is beautiful. I'm sure it didn't all start that way day one. You've got 3 other women working with you, so maybe that helps. But I love your tagline. Let's make your home feel more like it. I know you have it on your website. You have it on your Instagram. I think it's great. I kind of wanted to know, there's 2 things. I'll segment this. So part is just, how do you ensure that your designs are reflecting the unique stories and needs of your clients? Because obviously you want to make their home feel more like it for them. So how do you go about doing that? And then I'll have one more marketing question.
Honestly, it's through building that relationship and getting to know them. Once they become a client, we send out a welcome guide that attached to that is their questionnaire. We ask them to fill it out. After that, we'll have our project kickoff meeting. And at our project kickoff meeting, I have our questionnaire and I start asking them, again, I talked on this earlier, the why behind things, because that gives me more insight on what they need and want. I also want to hear about the way that they live life. You could want a very beautiful house or a beautiful living room. I'm just using a room for an example. But then you could have a dog that has, some kind of allergy and they can't control themselves. I need to know about Fluffy, the puppy, who has this issue, because then that helps me make sure I'm sourcing the right thing, for your home. So when I say to make it feel more like it, it's not only about the aesthetic, but it's also really getting to know you and your needs and what's going to help your family function best. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to make sure we're giving you everything, not only you want aesthetically, but that's going to work for your family. If you have, a bustling family, we want to make sure we're sourcing the right materials.
Yeah, totally. I feel like also this is maybe not the question I was going to ask, but I think when it comes to sourcing in general and being, again, a designer who's coming into this, first starting sort of with like the hard finishes and the construction side, but you mentioned wanting to do furnishings and you do that and you sort of get to that point. Was there any moment of like figuring out there's so many materials and textiles and things you can source and vendors, like how did you possibly go about focusing in on like, these are the vendors I want to work with, or these are even materials that do exist in the world that are good for that kind of situation? How did you do that?
High Point. Game changer. Going to High Point and spending, investing in the days. So I spend 5 days there. And now going to High Point looks a little bit different for me than it has in the past. But when I first started, I think I went there year 1. And it's the only way I could have learned about the different vendors. And I went and saw, because you can look online at the pictures, but you have no idea how it sits. Does it feel cheap? Because not everything is made the same, And I really collected what were going to be my good, better, and best vendors. And so taking all that kind of inventory, because at the end of the day, our name is on it as well. We're the ones who are selling these products. So I really want to make sure that I am good with whatever we are sending, to our clients. And building those relationships within those different vendors is huge to me. And, communication's big to me. So if they're communicating well with me, then I'm going to be loyal to them and, boost them up and use them in whatever projects I can, because, they have the kind of same beliefs as I do, as far as, communicating. And if there's an issue that we're going to taken care of, because that just then helps the whole customer experience,
Yeah. Did you have the idea to go to High Point and make a list of, good, better, best? Or did you learn this from one of the events or coaches you saw? Because I feel like not everyone's that strategic potentially about going into an event like that.
I'm sure. I can't really remember if it was, I'm sure it was a hybrid, a combination of maybe hearing something and then coming up with my own. This year we're going here, gosh, in 2 weeks. We're actually shopping for specific clients, so this year will look a little bit different. And I'm hoping, as you know, one of my goals is to start doing panels and kind of get myself out there that way. Because I love talking to designers. I love the business part. I love being vulnerable with others. And so I'm hoping that I can pop into a couple of the panels. I have some friends that are going to be on panels. So I want to go and support them as well. But I encourage every designer, if you're new or if you haven't been to High Point, it's a must for me. And it's a must for my team, especially the designers who have to do it. It's no question to ask. So.
Well, I'll see you there, I think. I mean, as long as I'm sure if you're there for 5 days, we'll run into each other at some point. Okay. Knowing that you didn't come from a marketing background, I don't know, you've taken all these courses, so I don't know how much marketing you get in. I just think you have a great presence. I think some designers struggle with that. They want it, but they don't really know how to get it. Yeah. So I'm just curious, at what point did you invest in marketing and how did you get so good at it? Like, I love your style and your reels and your website. Like, I'm just curious what your process was there. You also mentioned, I have to say, your first ever project you had professionally photographed. Mm-hmm. That is amazing. A lot of people don't do that. I think it's genius. So just talk to me about your mindset around marketing.
Before I did Sandra Funk's The Standard, there was a fairly new designer and she had a kind of, you could join in on a Zoom call. And it was literally, how do you set up an LLC? It was literally giving you the basics 101. She doesn't do this anymore, but luckily I heard about it and I jumped in on this. I still have 2 really good friends that I met through that course on Zoom with us, just talking in the chat and then becoming IG friends. And now I've met them both in person. So they're real life friends. So anyway, she was talking about marketing and she comes from working, I'm going to mess this up, but one of the big hotel chains. And she gave me a name of a girl. And so I reached out to the girl and I just knew the importance. I have always appreciated branding. I've always appreciated the beauty. I know when I go look for someone, I'm looking at those things. It's just important to me. So I wanted to, and I also think it just makes you come off more professional as well. So I knew that was probably the very first thing that I spent money on, and that I say it to this day. That's how I got the clients that I've gotten. She did all my branding. She did all of my website. I do everything in my stories, but she does my grid to make it pretty. So I invest in her. I guess she's like an independent contractor for me now. Okay. But then on stories, that's where I really like to get in. I like to talk and communicate. I've never been shy. I am actually shy. I honestly, I'm an introvert, extrovert. I really am a homebody. I like intimate settings. But this is what I want to encourage, because everyone says on Instagram, show your face, show your face, show your face. And everybody's intimidated to do that. So this is what I tell everyone who asks me, you do this so easily. And I'm like, trust me, the first time I did 2,000 takes, to just get something out there. But then I thought, okay, who is my best friend? I'm talking to her, and that's all I'm talking to. And I'm just going around showing her what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about who is looking at my stories. And that really changed for me. I stopped looking at myself. I stopped looking at like, oh gosh, look at that dark spot, or look at this wrinkle, or, the things that we usually do when we're facing the camera. And just was like, okay, I'm just talking to my girlfriend and we're going to explain what we're doing today. And that really, really helped.
So invest in marketing early if you're new.
And a bookkeeper.
And a bookkeeper and a great bookkeeper.
Really late. I've done that really late. And now it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah. What would you say if someone's like, oh no, I got it, I don't need a bookkeeper? Why would you tell them you absolutely need a bookkeeper?
Because our business is extremely complicated. It's not the basic 101 bookkeeping. And I highly encourage to use someone who has a niche or a niche in interior design because they know how our business operates. And ever since I hired my bookkeeper who does know interior design, it's been a huge stress off of my plate. Do what you know and what you love. Don't do the things that you don't have any expertise in. And I have zero expertise in bookkeeping.
Same. Yeah. I feel like it's a hard thing to grasp as a business owner, which is, especially if you're not bringing in a lot of money yet and you're just getting started, it's easy to go, well, I don't need to hire for that yet. And I think there are steps, there's strategic steps you can take, but I love the advice of just do what you're good at and then hire out. There's so many of these companies that can help you like part-time, or you can find someone fractional. And I think that's really the beauty of this industry is there's so many people to support running a design business out there that I think it can actually work. Absolutely. Okay. I know I've taken a lot of your time. I have one last question, which is just, what are you currently most excited about?
Honestly, anything or my business?
Anything.
I'm taking my son to Tennessee.
Oh.
We're going down to Knoxville and we're going to the Tennessee-Alabama game. So he is in high school and we're starting to, think college, and I want him to get really excited, especially I didn't have that experience of college. And so he wants it. So I'm really encouraging it. And luckily, I can have flight benefits because I have a husband that works for the airline. So we're jumping on a plane and we're going to go visit University of Tennessee, go to a game. And honestly, I told you about, my family is the most important thing to me. And so what I'm most excited about is it's just me and him. So it's a one-on-one mom time. I know how quickly the next couple of years are going to fly by, and then he's off on his own. So this is what's got me really, really excited.
I love that. I went to Auburn, actually. So big rival of Alabama.
Oh, yes.
That should be fun. Well, that's really exciting. I honestly, as a mom, I have an almost 4-year-old, and recently we were like filling out school applications. And they're like, what do you like most about your kid? And I was like, everything, but also like her undying love for me. She tells me how much she loves me and wants to hug me. And I'm like, I know this isn't going to last
on to it
forever. Yeah. I wish I could bottle it and it's just, I know, because she's already 4 and I feel like I just had her. So, I love that you get to do that with your son.
Yeah. And I have a 7-year-old boy. So I get
you still get that.
I still get it, but I do not get it from my teenage son who is too cool for school. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. So
that's going to be awesome. And in the football game, that will be a big game. I'm sure that'll be.
We're going big. So,
any big plans for the business on the horizon that you want to share? Since that was personal.
The big plans is we spoke about putting myself out there and always shooting for the next level. And so for me, part of that next level is I'm in the works of creating a docuseries of my story and how I've built my business and putting that out there for, again, marketing purposes, putting my name out there to hopefully get, more podcasts, maybe some panels, and then just seeing, where that takes me. Hopefully this is something that I can send to new architects and new builders that I haven't connected with yet. So then they can see who I am. It's something for clients to see as well. So yeah, really excited about this.
Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, everybody, I guess we can say that here. Coming soon. We'll be sure to share anything we find about that on Instagram or on our social channels, because that's really exciting. I love it. I think your story is incredibly inspiring. I think it's beautiful. So thank you so much for spending so much time with me today.
Yes, this was so much fun. For my first podcast, this was a blast.
I love it. I'm so honored to be your first, and hopefully this means you'll get many more to come once they hear this amazing story. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Designing Tomorrow. This podcast is brought to you by Materio. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, like, and leave us a comment below about what you thought.